This is nothing less than an integrated amplifier revolution in a puny sleeper body, but it also have a couple of pullbacks that you should be aware of if they apply to you, of course. I'm sorry for my voice today. I don't know what's going on, but I'm starting to sound a little bit like Tony Robbins and a guy who just had a balloon full of helium. Have no clue why that's happening, but this is the channel that breaks for nobody, so let's get on with it. I've had the pleasure of reviewing quite a bit of the premium hi-fi that have come out of the Japanese underdog hero Technics in recent years, including the €2,500 SUG 700 and the €8,000 R1000 integrated amplifiers, where I experienced how well they have done with trickling down their technologies invented for the massive digital state-of-the-art reference R1 series that I have also reviewed. It kind of makes me very familiar with their stuff over the years, so when a new, even cheaper integrated streaming amplifier was announced, I was naturally excited to hear what Technics can do with such big constraints to the price tag that is only €1,800. I'm going to give you all the details as well as what to look out for. You get it all here on Stjernholm Reviews, your independent, non-sponsored, non-monetized channel, so be sure to subscribe and like this video. It really means a lot. And more importantly, it totally feeds my ego. Feed the ego! Tap, 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 tap! Let me repeat one more time. €1,800. That's where we're at now for Technics' original digital sound technology that really sets the bar for how well it can be done in digital. And the GX70 takes it even further, adding stuff that we haven't seen before. So what are my expectations here really? Well, initially I expected a less muscular version of the G700 Mark II, without the same fidelity basically, almost making me want to discard it in advance. But boy, am I glad I didn't. Originally, I planned just to do a quick review, but this thing just kept giving me one surprise discovery after another, leading me to insist on doing a full review. With this amplifier, Technics seem to have asked themselves, what do today's music lovers actually want? In the answer emerging, it looks like they learned that they want convenience and great sounding music, both at the same time, and that the music comes from a huge landscape of sources and services that changes all the time. Well, hallelujah! It seems like they finally got it, and the consequence brought almost everything. Everything! Despite the attractive low price. So let's hope they executed it like a... Technics has gotten rid of almost all buttons on this thing, but added some touch buttons to the display. To me, that indicates some real confidence in their software. Even the click action of the rotary knob has gone. I'm not totally convinced about this choice though. I like to be able to walk over to an integrated product and turn it on and at least be able to select favorites or presets from the front in one operation. As far as hardware connectivity goes, we get 2 line inputs, and these even have selectable subsonic filters that can be enabled, which is surprisingly advanced to offer. Oh, and the phono stage turning out to sound really brilliant. More on that later. We also get digital inputs in optical and coaxial formats, as well as a dedicated pre-out that can be used to drive external amplification, or subwoofers for that matter, if they have a built-in crossover. So far, the usual stuff you would expect from a decent integrated amplifier, but then the floodgates really rip open when it comes to streaming and new features. We get integrated support for Tidal, Qobuz, Amazon Music, Deezer, Internet Radio, podcasts, DNLA music server playback, DAC support for the high sample rates including DSD. Oh yeah, and add Apple AirPlay or Google Cast on top. Whew, it's getting hot in here. But wait, the The GX70 takes it even further with a couple of Technics firsts. We also get a HDMI ARC port, allowing you to digitally connect the TV and control the amp from the TV. They're even applying the General reclocking engine and some other new secret sauce that they're really proud of and talk a lot about for the optimal sound quality here on the HDMI as well. They also tickle and wow us with a built-in FM and DAB Plus tuner and a high-quality headphone output. While your kids might ask,
"But Dad, what is FM?"
FM,
It
bro.
sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
It offends me already.
Well, back in the day, we only had AM. I'm sure that many will appreciate having the ability to listen to radio wave-based radio if the apocalypse hits and the internet is torn to pieces. Preppers, you know who you are. But wait, there's more. Actually, a lot more than meets the eye in this little thing. To my big surprise, this amp comes with a Technics room correction system called SpaceTune. It uses a iOS device as a measuring microphone and optimizes the frequency response according to Technics ideas. But here is the thing. No matter the technical worthiness of such system, the system produced very good and usable results during my test, at least here in my room with the 3 different pair of speakers I tried using it with. I think it can be of huge value and with great benefit for anybody with less than optimal speaker placement. Same approach is used by speaker vendor Buchard Audio that to this day has not dared to let me review their speakers.
Let's settle this once and for all, Run! All right, you got the gum.
I will cover more on SpaceTune in the sound part of the review, as it will have an overall much more impact to the subjective sound experience than any other feature in the amp. In addition, you also get the speaker impedance response optimizing system LAPC and a simple bass treble tone control to tailor your sound with. With this many features and hardly any hardware buttons, the remote comes to the rescue. Fortunately, it follows the design principle for previous products with nice sized buttons, while adding some nice touches here and there, like a direct recall of favorites, dedicated radio button and more. And that brings us to the elephant in the room. The Technics audio app. To make a long story short here, it is clear that Technics still lacks a driving vision for their software experience. It's a mess of patchwork and does not feel very solid in use. The app could barely bear the weight of the SLG 700 player that I previously reviewed here on the channel. It has such potential, but you end up not using it, or trying to avoid it with every means necessary, as it fights you every step of the way with inconsistent functionality and disconnect between using the app, the hand remote, and the hardware display. Here I would like to remind Technics some words that are great to live by and motivate by. Simplicity requires intelligence. In short, it's easy to make things complicated. I think it's safe to say that the innovation and passion you find in their hardware design solutions are not present in the app experience. All the amplifier settings can be accessed from the app, including enabling and disabling features, accessing SpaceTune functions, LAPC, and much more. Feature-wise, I really miss Roon support. But this is still up in the air at Technics, and I still find missing out on Tidal Connect to be an obvious mistake. Basically though, from a feature list standpoint only, it really covers all bases on the feature list, no matter what you need now or in the future. When it comes to the daily use of the SU-GX70, it really depends on what you want to do. I ended up using the favorites function that can only be accessed from the remote to recall favorite playlists and radio stations. This could not save me from the 21-item long source list when wanting to listen to a turntable or digital source, as those inputs can't be added as favorites. Sorry for yet an example of the bad software experience here. And why in heaven's name can't you disable the inputs or services you don't need? If you say, are using FM and internet radio, a turntable, and Spotify for streaming via the Spotify app, all you need is actually just 3 sources. The rest of the inputs should just be disabled until such time where you need them. But no, all this unnecessary dial turning will soon get old, right? And kind of makes you feel...
Oh, you're going too slow. Let me take the wheel.
How could you even tell what's on?
I can tell.
Back.
Too late, I'm in the 40s. Gotta go around the horn.
The final blow came when something like saving a FM station preset also had to be complex. And it gave me this message. I kind of gave up trying to use all the built-in sources in the GX70 and just connected the Bluesound Node X for salvation. What best describes the daily user experience as a whole must be inconsistency. Techniques just haven't nailed how it should work, adding even more complexity. And that's never a good thing. Keep an eye out for the future updates and let's hope that there will be a lot of them.
You're not gonna hate man.
Thank Lord. When it comes to the sound, Technics is totally bringing their A game. Let's start where I started, and that was with the PhonoStage supporting cartridges. To really dig into the quality of the PhonoStage, the Danish world-renowned cartridge manufacturer Autofon was kind enough to send me a sample of their top-of-the-line exclusive €1,000 cartridge, the LVB250. That is a tribute to Beethoven's 250 years anniversary, based on the 2M black cartridge, but with an upgraded boron cantilever and a nanotube suspension system with a nude Shibata stylus, promising very fast and detailed sound. And it is also said to be one of the best cartridges in existence right now. Here I experience a surprisingly warm, very detailed and natural sound on Alice Carelli's wonderful album More Than You Know, where her special voice caresses my ears through the GX70 splendid headphone amp on a pair of Sennheiser HD800s that usually can feel very analytical, but here gave me warmth and fatness and detail at the same time. To A-B compare the quality of the built-in PhonoStage, I hook up a Project PhonoBox S2 external PhonoStage that you can listen to in the Big Listen right there, and connect that to the line input, also utilizing the subsonic filter like I did on the built-in PhonoStage to compare precisely. To me, Alice Carelli's sound every bit as good with that combination, confirming that the built-in PhonoStage has nothing to be ashamed of. To be honest, I think you only need to consider another PhonoStage if you want to use MC cartridges, something you get built in on the SUG 700 Mark II amplifier that provides an excellent MC stage. The amplifier itself on the GX70 provides only 40 watts per channel rated in 8 ohms. This is actually the biggest drawback with this amp if you don't have really efficient speakers and or play in a large room. It's all relative, of course, depending on your listening levels and especially on that speaker's efficiency. When speakers are well matched, the actual wattage of the amp usually doesn't matter that much, as double the power is only 3 dBs of extra headroom, right? In my case here, with the not so sensitive speakers I tested with, the GX70 was clearly underpowered in the large crescendos of the music at my usual listening levels. I will do a little video at some point on this subject, but sound pressure versus watt is just a too big subject to cover here. Switching to a pair of rare Ophi Eminence 2.5 speakers, I link to them in the description, I had in for a listening evaluation. I decided to push these 90 dB sensitivity speakers up against the wall for 3 to 6 dB more acoustical gain. And also important, just as my wife would prefer speakers to be placed, which unfortunately almost always in this new room results in a swampy bass presentation and also affects the lowest mid-range for a muddy, not very inspiring sound. Running Spacetune is very quickly done directly from my iPhone, and in less than 30 seconds, boop, a new response curve is calculated and blam! I was expecting this room correction system to be a kind of toyish, far too narrow filtered, unmusical mayhem, but what I got here was a very pleasing, very natural sounding correction that gave me the mid-range clarity back and a precise bass response. This must simply be the biggest value this amp can bring to anyone with speakers on a shelf or pushed up against a wall. It was very successful. The result actually reminded me a bit of the kind of improvements I get from a system like the professional GLM correction system by Genelec. Very fast, very convenient to use. With the O-Fi speakers, the GX70 power seemed adequate due to their higher efficiency, and I loved the sound that I got dialed in. In case you need more power, the GX70 can still be the center of a system if utilizing the pre-outs. Coming in handy with external power amps or active speakers, the sky will be the limit in that case, but the ability to use the LAPC feature is lost, of course. Surprisingly, I find myself hanging on to playing vinyl for a couple of hours that day with selections like Wiz Jones Right Now from 1972 and a complete listen to Frank Sinatra at the Sands, including the monologue. That is just such a phenomenal performance with everybody in the band at their peaks. The whole thing just sounds so authentic on this 180-gram vinyl release with the Autophon LVB250 digging up the sound. I could not help digging out my CD copy for comparison, and this vinyl copy is just that much more alive to listen to, and it stands to me as a really good example of when authentic vinyl sound is just the thing adding the right spice to the experience. Later I moved to digital with Roon and into the Sonic Snacks playlist using a Bluesound Node X as the endpoint connected to the GX70 via the digital coax input. And here is a very clean and open sound revealed with full MQA decoding in the GX70. You certainly hear the family bloodlines in the sound of the GX70. It might not sound as fluid as the SUG 700 Mark II integrated amplifier, but it is damn close and just amazing for the money. If Spacetune is beneficial for your setup, then you can't even compare them anymore. The soundstage sounded very deep and wide on the O-Fies, and even more so after running the LAPC impedance optimization. The bass has still weight but is kept tight thanks to Spacetune and LAPC in combination. It's a difficult speaker placement, no doubt, but the results was great. I also corrected the speaker a bit more, rolling off some of the excessive high end of this development sample using the treble tone control that centers around 10K. And there it was. Yup, Sound Nirvana with a €1,800 integrated amp that has a great DAC and phono stage, tuner and a shitload of other features on a pair of pretty serious floor standers, not making the GX70 blush at all. The amplifier also offers a pure mode that shuts down all network and Wi-Fi functions in order to remove all potential sources of noise. I listen to classical music on headphones to detect what might be a slight improvement when doing so, but really nothing I would bother with in everyday life. The amp is really silent overall. The headphone output is worth mentioning again here. It is great, punchy, dynamic and detailed. If you want an even better external headphone amp, you could connect that to the pre-outs. Overall, this is a really good sounding amp for this kind of money, full of useful tricks and surprises. It feels almost like full circle for Technics with the SU GX70. bringing their digital amplifier and DSP technology down to a price level where many more can take part. It has a surprisingly good phono stage and room correction built in, streaming and digital, together with a radio wave-based radio and only a few misses. So this kind of boring and conservative looking integrated amplifier is simply setting a brand new benchmark in the price range. It sounds silent, clean, surprisingly warm and detailed. One of the compromises you might have to account for with the GX70 is the power that some of the switching amp competitors will have in spades, like the Cambridge Audio Evo 150 reviewed previously here on the channel. This means that the GX70 might not be suitable if you like big dynamics at realistic listening levels, unless you're using pretty efficient speakers or use external amplifiers, which is perfectly possible. The biggest turnoff for me is actually the software that lacks the same love and care and passion that Technics gives their hardware. In the version I had for review, it clearly needs work and, most of all, a cohesive vision that puts the user empowerment at the top. It is felt everywhere, from the 21-item source list to the favorite system that is simply all over the place. Using the GX requires both the app and the remote to get around all corners. It's just silly. I know that Technics will listen to this, won't you? And provide updates for their products. So let's hope they really get it and let the GX70 become the music-inspiring user experience it can be. All the ingredients are there, but it's like the chef lacks a really clear vision. Remember, as always, nothing can replace your own experience. Hear what it can do for your sound in your own room and consider what is important to you in the software. I try to cover all bases, also those that might not apply to you at all. So stand by for the pros, the cons, and the review score, and remember to tap those like and subscribe buttons and check all the other awesome content on the channel. Share videos you might find interesting with your audiophile brothers out there in forums and on social media. See you soon here back on the channel. And remember, you will know everything if you just listen. See you soon.